Welcome to EB3, Speaking the Truth in Love. Today I want to talk about, uh, give you a little story about myself. It's about the time that I almost got fired. And it was my fault. But mercy and grace, I made it through. So here we go. When I was, I want to say I was probably about 20. When I was 20, I grew up, when I was 20, I probably had like a chip on my shoulder. I didn't realize it. But what it was growing up, I went through a lot of things. Always being short, uh, always being the smallest and the shortest person everywhere I went. So I was picked on a lot, and it kind of made me tough. Like I think when you're picked on a lot, you're gonna either be one or the other. You're either gonna stand up and take up for yourself, or you're gonna be running all the time. You're gonna be a coward. You're gonna be always, you'll be withdrawn, timid, or whatever. Now, don't get me wrong, I was pretty shy for the most part, but I wasn't so shy that I didn't have any friends because I had different groups of friends, and we'll talk about that on another video. But fast forward, I was 20 years old, and I was um, working on the job that I'm working now, but I was an apprentice. And for those of you who don't know what an apprentice is, I think most people do, but for those of you who don't understand how apprenticeships work, you basically get paid to work and learn. So I I was an electrical apprentice. So I'm a Marine, first class Marine electrician. But back then I was like a first year apprentice. And I was a young person with, again, a chip on my shoulder and like a ticking time bomb, basically. So anyway, here goes the story. I um I worked for this lady, and she was old enough to be my mother. Um, in all actuality, she was a really nice lady, but like again, I had a little chip on my shoulder, and a lot of times when she would tell me stuff, I took offense of it. So this particular time, I she got on to me about something. And I never really had a problem with somebody getting on to me, especially an older person, but I always had a problem with somebody getting on to me in front of people. But that goes back to me being picked on a lot as a child. And so this particular time, she got on to me about something in front of uh, the whole crew that we were all working in. The crew was at the time, she had probably about 14 people in the crew, but that probably wouldn't have been that bad. The problem was when she got on to me, yes, the whole crew was there, but also there was other crews. Again, I work in production at a shipyard, right? So we were in a compartment the size of, I would say, mm, maybe maybe the compartment might have been like maybe 60 by 30. I can't really remember, but it was a pretty good sized compartment, and at capacity it could probably hold about 40 people. But it wasn't 40 people. It was probably about 20, 25 people because it was different departments doing, different crafts doing jobs in that particular. And so, anyway, so in my classic fashion, I went off on her. Like by all rights, she had a right to fire me. She did. She had a right to fire me. Um, but what happened was it it was stuff that built up because like an individual told me that she said something about me. And so then when she got on me, I was just like, I was already mad because I already had an attitude with her because I felt like she was saying stuff behind my back instead of coming to me and letting me know where I was messing up or whatever the situation was. It was such a long time ago. I can't remember exactly what the person said. But I think the other thing that I was upset about was the fact that the person happened to be a young white man. And I felt like her being old enough to, you know, basically be my mom, even though she was my boss. I looked at her as being old enough to be my mom, me being young black, and her being an older black woman. I felt like she should have come to me and told me. Again, I didn't have a problem with somebody criticizing me. It was just I had the chip on my shoulder for being picked on a lot as a child. So I went off. Yeah, I mean, I I haven't I didn't curse her out, but um I told her she didn't have the right to talk to me like that, and she was not going to talk to me like that. And so she said these words. So you're not going to do what I told you. I said I'm not saying that, but what I am telling you is you're not going to talk to me like that. I am a grown woman, 20 years old. I'm a grown woman and you're not going to talk to me. So she was like, well, you need to go do such and such and such. And I was like, no, we need to resolve this. I was just going on and on, just being very disrespectful. I didn't give her the same courtesy that I wanted from her. You know, I didn't understand. Like I knew that you're supposed to treat people the way you're supposed to be treated, but I didn't understand that in that moment, I was not doing that. And so by me saying the things that I said and the way I said it, and I think I said some more stuff, but I can guarantee you it wasn't curse word because I haven't cursed since I was like 16. Um, but I was really nasty and really disrespectful. And technically, she could have got me on insubordination. So the crazy part about it was the the supervisor that I had worked for previously went to her and asked her, what in the world did you do to her? Because she never, he called my name. At least she never act like that. She's always just do whatever you tell her to do. She's always been very respectful. Uh, what in the world is going on? And so I told this story. Well, I'm gonna tell you how we resolved it. Eventually, like the next day, I guess she was giving me time to cool off. She was older, she was wiser than me. She gave me time to cool off. So eventually, the next day, she called me in the office and we talked about it. And me being me, I told her I laid everything on the line, and she laid everything on the line. And after that, I always respected her after that because she could have fired me right then by every right. The way I was talking, going back and forth with her, the way I walked off, the way I didn't do what she told me in that moment. Like all the way up until then, I did what she told me. I may have messed up some stuff. Yeah, well, actually, I did mess up some stuff, but it was learning because when you're apprentice, of course, you are learning the job. But to be disrespectful and not um, listen and take the criticism and then talk to her on the side, that was the more mature thing. And so I said that to say this. Sometimes when we're young, we do a lot of things, we say a lot of things, we don't think about the long term action. Had she fired me, I probably could have came back to that job, because on the job I work on, I think back then it was like 30 to 60 days you can come back, as long as they don't deem you as unhireable. Um, but at the end of the day, I really couldn't have, because I was an apprentice and I would have had to wait the 4 years. So I would have had to wait 3 more years until everybody that hired in with me finished the apprenticeship program. Because you had to get so many hours, and you also had to go to school. So I would have had to finish, wait till everybody finished, and that could have put me behind 4 years. Of course, I could have got a job somewhere else, but life could have been totally different. Again, had she not had patience with me. Um, so again, I'm gonna go back to saying what I was gonna say. Cause y'all look at me enough, y'all know I go off on a tangent. But I wanted to say all this to say this. Listen, sometimes we really just need to not be so defensive on everything. Everybody's not your enemy. Yes, you have some people out there that don't have your best interest, but a lot of times as we get older and we look at people younger than us, we want better for them. Even if it's not our children, we want better for them. And we know the downfalls, the pits, because we've started working through these situations. We understand what can happen to you. And so I think a lot of times, again, as when you're young, you don't think about the long term consequences. A lot of times you don't even think about the short term consequences. But I think as we get older and as we have more responsibilities, we need to start thinking about um, what we do and what we say and how we say it. I'm not saying that you gotta be nicer to anybody. I'm not even saying that you can't talk up for yourself. But I'm saying that there's a way to do things. There's a way to do and say anything that you have to say and get your point across and still have your job if that's what you so desire. But if you are in a place where you just don't want to be there anymore, you feel like the people are not, the cultural is not conducive or not inclusive or whatever it is that you feel that it's not, then go by it the right way. Start looking for you something else. Find out that something else that you want to do. Find out what those credentials are. What are the requirements to get this position that you want? Be it in the company that you're already in or another company. But do that, because at the end of the day, yes, after you have quit or gotten fired, you can definitely get another job. I'm not telling you that. But what I'm telling you is you might not want to go 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks without a check before you get another position. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, do all things decently and in order. And I believe that as we get older, you see, it's one thing to be irrational, make like I did, go off the deep end and all that kind of stuff when you're young. When you're a teenager, you're in your 20s, your early 20s. But by the time you start getting in your 30s, your early 30s up into your mid 30s and beyond, we need to start maturing. We need to start seeing and thinking about what is really best for not only us, but for the people that we're responsible for. Because by the time you're 35, 36 years old, you're probably responsible for somebody else besides yourself. It could be you depending on how old your parents are. It could be that you starting to be kind of responsible for them. Not necessarily monetary, but in other ways. You don't have to be money. Everything is not about monetary responsibility, but there's other ways you can be responsible for them. So it, you might have children, or you might be married to somebody that have children. You might have a mortgage by then, or got a car you need to pay for. If nothing else, you got light, gas, and water to pay for, right? In other words, you have responsibilities. And your responsibilities as you get older are your responsibilities, not your parents, not your sisters or your brothers. They're yours. Anybody that come in and help you, that's great. But in the meantime, it's so much easier for people to want to help you if you learn how to be more responsible and learn how to react to situations. Think before you do anything. Think before you say anything, and learn how to treat people the way you want to be treated, even if they're your leaders that get on your last nerve. Sometimes people look at me and think that I'm afraid of people, but I'm telling you, it's the grace of God that gives me the patience to bite my tongue sometimes. Because, again, I used to be a hothead and very defensive. But by the mercy and grace of God, He has changed me in such ways to, sometimes I'll kind of slip back, but not to the point where I just go off the deep end like I would have in my late teens and early to mid 20s, right? At some point in life, we've got to learn that it's not always just that it affects us, but our actions affect other people. So before you go out, the next time somebody get on your last nerve, whether it's your boss, whether it's your parents, whether it's your business partner, if you own a business, whether it's your business partner, your children, whomever, some person that's aggravating you, trying to date you that you don't want to be bothered with. Think before you say something. Because life and death is in the power of the tongue. All actions, all actions have consequences or benefits to them. Which sometimes being the mature person means that you just be quiet, bite your tongue, and make a plan of escape. Okay? Let's think about what we're doing before we do it, because it's already ugly at 20, but the older you get, the uglier it gets. And to keep starting over because you are doing things through your emotions or because of your emotions, it's not a good thing. Okay? So think about what you're doing before you do it. Always think about what you're doing before you do it. Because sometimes it can be a short term consequence, and sometimes it can be a lifetime consequence. Anyway, this has been EB3 speaking the truth in love. Be blessed, be a blessing, and I am out.